Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Zen Yucatán webinar this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, wherever you are in the world. We're very excited to host and talk about our release, Smile in general, and some exciting things that we want to share with the group today. First of all, my name is Peter Yu. I'm the Director of Strategy and Transformation here at Smile Digital Health. I'm here with my awesome colleague, Adam Cole. Adam, would you like to introduce yourself quickly?
I will if I can find the mute button. Hey, Adam Cole. I head up, where do I point? Sales engineering, and I'm a senior solution architect at Smile. Pleasure to be here.
And for the folks who kind of heard the little chime music going on in the beginning, that was from Drew, one of our director of business development. That's actually his background right now. He's outside, and we felt it was such a great coincidence that what our goal about Zen is our product as we develop our products, as we put more feature, is to create Zen within our customers, within the administrators, within the implementers to make life easy. So you can focus on more innovation and more quality of care as our tagline, unleashing your superpower to focus on quality of care. That's what you should focus on. So I'm going to start. If you have any questions, ideas, or comments, please drop them in the chat. I can see that Ichelson Fire Guy, awesome name, has asked, how can we watch the stream later? It's on our website, as well as you can watch it on our YouTube channel. Feel free to drop chats. The team will let us know, and we'll try to answer it real time or at our Q&A at the end of our session. So a glimpse of what you'll see, essentially is three pretty interesting topics. A glimpse of Smile Digital Health as one, Yucatán or release, how we're, some 5 key things that we've done and we're very proud of on this release that we want to share in terms of how it will help your business, your IT teams, your digital teams, and your digital transformation journey, and also highlight in terms of the Smile Premium products that also enhances a lot of things you will do. It'll drive a lot of innovations and quality use case that you will need in terms of your journey in the interoperability and creating a healthcare solution that will work for your customers and also for your business. Okay, Q&A will be at the end, and we love to answer any questions that you may have. So, but first, I want to share a little observation I have. It's very interesting. Every time I go to a conference, this is a typical pattern I see all the time. A person will walk up, right? They'll walk up right to me. I'll introduce myself. Hey, I'm Peter Yu, and then they will introduce, I'm John Smith, for example. This is a very typical behavior I always see. They'll take their hands, put it into their front pocket, and they kind of like look up, take a deep breath, and they start squinting at the background behind me. And they go, oh, Smile Digital Health. We're preparing healthcare providers, payers, researchers, and life science organizations for a connected future beyond legacy system with the mission of better global health. Then immediately they'll turn to me and they go, so what do you guys do? So my response has always been a very simple but powerful thing that I tell our customers or people that walk up to me. There's 2 interesting product lines or product suite. On the left, right, visually, I don't know if it's my left or your right. On this side, we have our Fire Health Data Fabric. It's more than a CDR, and I'll explain a little bit more. Before, we used to call Smile CDR, Clinical Data Repository. We rebranded to Smile Digital Health, and I'll explain why. And that's the true reason why, and it's very impactful. And the other side I tell people is clinical reasoning. And I will explain a little bit about clinical reasoning just in a moment. So swinging back on this side on the health data fabric, we're more than just data management. We're more than just a repository that looks at, oh, yes, we can do relational. We can do non-relational. We can do partitioning. We can scale. We can do all these functions as data management, but we're more than that. We have way more capabilities than that. We have data processing ingestions. We have translational service, validation, streaming, terminology service, master data management, where some of our customers really focus on EMPI, but our master data management goes across every single file resource out there. And what about data delivery? We got data delivery in terms of sync, async, message brokers, bulk export, working with smart APIs and smart apps. And I'm just scratching the surface. And obviously, we have a strong consent, user management, role-based access, logging, transactions, security. We have all those great stuff. So that's why when we talk about why we have to kind of get away from the CDR is because our health data fabric is way more than that. I'm just scratching the surface. So I'm going to go to the other side and talk about clinical reasoning. Every time I talk about clinical reasoning, it's a relatively new standard, a new open standard that works really nice with FIRE, right? It's 10 plus years in the making, and it's by our team, the clinical reasoning team at Smile, and they are the first individuals to actually create the first line of code for CQL, clinical quality language, which I'm going to talk about. And here it's where when we talk about it, my way of explaining it is this is the Peter way of explaining it is two things: it's analytics and reasoning. A lot of our customers do ask, oh, in clinical reasoning, or when I have information in Smile, I need to do something with it. And one of the most powerful use cases is analytics. You know, a typical pattern we see in the market is get the data out, export it out in an SQL format, then you can do SQL statements to run analytics and reporting on it. Clinical reasoning is challenging that assumption and go, why? Why can't we run at scale performant analytics with FIRE data? And that's where this open standard in our group, which I'm very proud of this team, does CQL, clinical quality language. It's a grammar and a logic that's created that works with FIRE directly. It's very SQL-like, but it does unleashes a whole set of digital quality measures, right? That's the analytics part. It's very powerful, digital quality measures. So think about at a population scale, at a cohort scale, at an individual scale, and it unleashes so much potential, right? Working straight in the FIRE data platform. On the other side, it's about reasoning. On the other day, my 3-year-old daughter came down. She had a little cold. She had a runny nose. She didn't feel too well. As a parent, you know, you start thinking about, does she have a temperature? Is she coughing? Should I do a COVID test? These are the reasoning things that happen in your head. When you see a physician or a clinician, that's exactly what they're doing. They're actually doing clinical reasoning. But again, when a physician or clinician graduate from school, and also with the ongoing learning and continuous improvement, there is so much they can learn and understand. And that's why it takes around 17 years for medical research that's approved to make it to medical practice. How can we accelerate that? How can we unleash true clinical decision support? And that's where, if we can make all these web pages, these books of medical practice, clinical practice guidelines into computable knowledge and run it through a FIRE server, imagine the potential we can unleash. Imagine when you see a doctor, through the information that the doctor is documenting, information that you're providing to your clinician through your smart device or whatever it is, these logics start running behind the scenes, start doing reasoning, and clinical decision support comes up to a physician, say, hey, there's some allergies happening here. Don't do that. Or this is the latest recommendation by 2023. Would you like to proceed? And these are things that really create a better clinical experience and a better clinical care for people. And imagine this is just in a clinical setting, but imagine this was an application. Imagine this was in the community. Imagine all the applications that can innovate around this clinical reasoning, these reasoning aspect of things. All right, so that's why I'm very excited to talk about these. Adam is even more excited to talk about things. And at a glance, you know, this is a really quick infographics. You know, we have 100 plus customers. We're all around the world, 15 plus channel partners. I think we have even more. We cover 70 million members across lives, across our member portal, 300 plus employees. I think we're bigger than that, but I'm not going to challenge statistics, but all the statistics I could say here is if these statistics are wrong, we're trending in a positive direction in terms of what the right statistics should be. And it's a pretty good correlation that we see right now within our organization. So now I'm going to hand it off to Adam. Adam is going to talk a little bit about FIRE.
I got to do this. So Peter, what do you guys do? I honestly thought when you said that, you were going to say when we're at conferences, people come up to us and say, oh, Smile, digital health, he must be in the dental space.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to. But yes, we're not Smile Dental Health, we're Smile Digital Health. Because we're all happy people.
Yeah, fortunately, our marketing team has done a great job, and we get a lot less of that these days. But you know what I did notice, Peter? Interesting how much our maps look the same. Flip back to your previous slide for 1 sec, please. I just noticed this. Yeah, look at this shaded in countries. And if you wouldn't mind flipping forward again, please, to my slide. So we didn't coordinate on this. I just thought it's fascinating. So I'll explain what's going on here. A little bit of a context. So I joined Smile about 3.5 years ago. And since then, fire has exploded. And so I wonder how much of this is my perception versus how much of this is reality. Um, and particularly, with the introduction of the patient access API, was that the peak for fire? Did things level off? Did they drop off? So I thought, okay, great place to start this morning would be with the State of the Union of Fire. And as most of us know, the patient access API, it's seeing relatively slow adoption by patients. But on the other hand, there's lots of demand for Interop, particularly for fire Interop. And this is being driven by CMS. They have a very aggressive agenda for fire-based use cases. So looking for some adoption, fire adoption stats. It's after digging a little bit in Google, it turns out that the best place was Google Trends. And that's this graph that you see in the top left. Google Trends calls these lines interests, but I'm pretty sure it just comes from an algorithm on the number of searches. Anyways, if we take a look at the blue line, that's interest in HL7 V2. It's held pretty consistent, low but consistent for the last decade. CDA, you can see it started moderately and it's come down, and it's now for the last several years been relatively consistent with V2. And fire, of course, fire is in red. We can see it's steady and consistent going up, and that trend just appears to be continuous. So we're looking forward to that. An interesting thing to note too is the numbers don't actually appear on this graph, but if we were to add up the numbers, the interest in fire is about 10 times as much as the combined interest in V2 and CDA. So some very strong signals there about fire adoption. And what my map shows here is the most dominant countries showing interest in fire, according to Google Trends. No surprise, North America, the US and Canada, very strong interest. Other regions of strong interest, Southeast Asia, lot of dominant countries there, and then Western Europe. And then a bunch of other countries throughout the globe with strong interest, and then it unfortunately this graph just has the two colors. It would be nice if it was shaded, but of course our interest today is going to be on the U.S. market. And I see a bunch of questions coming up. Let me finish this and I'll come back to them. So yeah, our interest is in the U.S. market. So let's zoom in on this U.S. graph. This one surprised me somewhat. It surprised me because this is from 2019, before the patient access APIs regulations came into effect. And even as far back in fire years as 2019, there was very, very strong adoption of fire in the hospital space already. And we can see, at least to me, it looks like the strongest adoption looks to be in the urban areas in the US, but still very strong adoption across the entire US hospital space. I wish I had a more recent graph, because I'm pretty sure most of the country at this point would be dark red. All right, before going on, let's take a quick look at these questions. I'm going to leave the ones that aren't relevant to this particular slide to the end. I see Calvin is asking, what is the number on the vertical axis? Calvin, my suggestion, go play with the Google Trends yourself. My belief is that's just a relative number, with 100 at the top and 0 at the bottom. All right. Let's move on, please, Peter. Thank you. Okay, so what we're looking at on this slide is the world of fire through the lens of Smile. And you can see it's Smile first started as a company in 2016, and you can see our growth is relatively similar, tracks relatively similar to what numbers we saw in the previous graph. You can see our customers in blue, and the number of countries we're in also tracks pretty similar. And looking at the size of the flags, it's unfortunate that they're not proportional to the size of the business in the countries. But if they were, we would see that the U.S. flag would be ginormous, followed relatively closely by Canada. But yes, clearly the U.S. It dominates the FIRE world, at least from the Smile business perspective. Next slide, please. Thank you. So yeah, as I was poking around in Google, I went to a Google Scholar, and I thought this was kind of neat. In the first half of 2023, there were over 1,200 papers published on FIRE, and the topics are really diverse, but quite a lot of academic activity going on in the FIRE world, and this points to some very strong indicators of active innovation and evidence-based research going on in the world of FIRE. Next, please, sir. Thank you. So it's a bit of a busy slide. Let's focus on the top half first. What we're looking at here is, in a traditional Interop world, we have proprietary siloed source data on one side and on the source side, and proprietary siloed data on the destination side. And we use Interop messaging to move data from source to destination. But once the message is being delivered, the message is thrown away. Contrast that to the bottom, and you know where I'm going with this. FIRE is both a journey and a destination. And I love that, because what that means is we're moving from the source systems in their proprietary siloed data into a destination where the data persists in FIRE, and consequently the data is liberated, and it's we can break through of the pain that we all experience today dealing with fragmented and siloed health data. So I'm pretty excited about that. Let's go on, please. Thank you. So talking about data and setting the context for the upcoming slides, the FIRE is all about data. Smile, of course, is a data company, and it's, as we talk about the business value that Smile features can bring in the following slides, I want to set some context about the data. So Smile helps you liberate your data and consequently recognize maximum value from one of your most important corporate assets. And these are the universal truths about objectives and challenges with data. And I'll read through them pretty quickly. We all want a single source of truth. That's a must. The spread of our data across many different systems and different deployments, that is a hindrance to business. The value of data, it's growing exponentially. And with that, there's an increasing demand for instant access to our data. Data needs to be made available to everybody all the time, and we don't want technical involvement to be a blocker to access to data. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, data is a competitive advantage. And it's valuable, but only in so much as it's trustworthy and that we have frictionless access to that data. Next, please. Peter, you did a great introduction of Smile and the health data fabric, and so I'll try and keep this one relatively short, not repeat anything you said, but I will say one thing I notice quite often is when we first bring up the concept of a health data fabric, we get the look with the furrowed eyebrows. And so I wouldn't mind spending a moment here just to give my perspective, a bit of a dive into what is health data fabric. So data fabric, first of all, it's a concept rather than a specific technology. The term was coined by Gartner several years ago, Gartner intended it to be industry agnostic, and in fact, it is industry agnostic. But in healthcare, and specifically with FHIR, we get 80 to 90% of the benefits of a data fabric for free. So what do I mean when I say we get those attributes for free? Well, of the top 10 attributes of a data fabric, 8 or 9 of them are native to FHIR. So for example, data fabric calls for standard representation of data. In FHIR, FHIR is highly opinionated about a standard data schema. The data fabric calls for a common terminology. Again, FHIR is pretty opinionated about terminology and code sets and value sets. Data fabric calls for RESTful APIs and reusable patterns on identity management, et cetera, et cetera. And we see these attributes built into FHIR. So we get these benefits right out of the box with FHIR. So we can take these concepts of the data fabric and we can couple that with FHIR, and we do this to harmonize your data assets. And this enables you to achieve optimal value and reusability with your data. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Peter, to do a bit of a deep dive.
Thank you, Adam. So in the following 2 slides, we're going to talk about 2 things. One is our SMILE product approach. Then my next slide is going to be on our market approach. And it follows this nice flower clock diagram. And a best of peace of mind for implementation and also for choosing a technology, we are best in breed. That's basically our methodology in this circle. I'm going to go from top all the way to the 9 o'clock. At a security level, we are best in class in terms of security and certification, high trust SOC 2, ISO certification, multiple of them. And we're going to go through more certification with the years to come. So because we are in the healthcare space, the whole team came from healthcare. So we know patient data, it's the most important, it has to be secure. So that's why we've put a lot of focus at that 12 o'clock in terms of security. But scalable and performance, we've done a couple benchmarks, actually a couple of years back or a year back, one with Oracle and one with AWS EC2s. And I would say, just me look at the market, we are the most scalable and performing platform out there. We choose technologies, obviously, I said EC2, but we work on XKS, anything Kubernetes, OpenShift. We work on those things because we understand how our customers are implementing all their applications, and we want to make sure it's an ease of deployment and ease of management for them from a deployment standpoint and also from a costing standpoint and performance standpoint. On the bottom is composability. SMILE is from 2 fronts in composability. We look at our integration with other organizations and other platforms out there. Our design is not the design that if you buy SMILE, you have to use everything SMILE. That's not what we want, because we understand our customer has a very complex ecosystems. And our SMILE is very modular. If you have a component that, for example, ingestion or integration in the front end, you want to integrate with SMILE, we've proven that we can work with all and most of the most frequent integration engines in the upfront. If you have an MDM solution that it works, we can take in an EID on an EID external mode to match records. And that talks about just the external facing. But in terms of internal facing, SMILE is very modular. You turn on the modules you need in terms of the components I talk about, right? Talk about data processing and ingestion. I talk about data management, talk about data delivery, and all these other components that in our ecosystem. It's turn on and turn on as much as you need in terms of it fits your architecture and your need and your use cases. Lastly is portability. We've proven that we can go on any cloud, hybrid cloud, on-prem, right? We want to ensure that it meets your needs. That's our product approach. Everything we build must follow these 4 guidelines. On the market approach standpoint, I'm actually going to make things interesting. I'm going to go back an hour. I'm going to talk about the 11 o'clock. We work towards Internet of Health, and just like Internet, it's a whole world and community type of effort to create our Internet. In terms of Internet of Health, how do we connect all our information together? The first one's the most important. Open standards first and always. This talks about Adam's previous diagram with the many and many, with the many data producers to many data consumers. If we focus on the world of proprietary data models and kind of closed models, this will never be achieved because it's very costly to maintain and you don't know how information is stored and you can't achieve interoperability really quick because you don't understand it. With open standard like FHIR, clinical reasoning, and SMART, and all these open standard working together, that's where innovation starts, right? That's where it's a community effort, and obviously SMILE, we're the leaders and we love to be the leaders and continue to contribute to the community and also build enterprise grade product. Clinical reasoning at scale, which I talked about, analytics and reasoning, I talked about it. We believe this is going to be the future in terms of how to work directly with the FHIR data. Skip a couple steps, but why just work directly with the FHIR data and unlock more use cases at a population level and also the clinical care level. Continuous improvement at SMILE, we love innovation as well as we love to innovate with the community. And lastly is you can't do this without a health IT utility grade at an enterprise grade product. There are open source products out there, but we do see a lot of our customers, when they want to really get very serious with their FHIR journey, they have to select an enterprise grade product that has all the components other than just a FHIR server, because you realize you're going to hit a roadblock very soon and you're going to build all those components. But the question is why, right? So on to my next slide. I'm going to jump into 5 major things in the quarter release. But before that, I hope Adam and I, with this section of our SMILE overview and just the general FHIR market, our analysis in terms of our interpretation on how to create the Internet of Health, people will kind of put up their hand and go like out of their pockets and go, I get it. That's our goal. That's our goal. So our quarterly releases at SMILE, what we do is every quarter, every 3 months, February, May, August, and November, on the third Thursday of the month, we would have our GA release. And this is our 25th release. It has been released a couple of weeks ago. It's on YouTube for more technical explanation of a quarterly release with way more things I'm going to talk about today. Please look at the presentation from James Agnew, our co-founder and CTO, the happy guy. Today I'm going to talk about 5 things, right? On Yucatán, it's our 25th release. We started with alphabet A, now it's Y. November is going to be Z, and I don't know what's going to happen in 2024 in terms of the nomenclature. I expect something awesome is going to come up, but stay tuned after November in 2024 how we're going to start naming our release. So first start. This slide does talk a lot of technical things, but I do want to kind of level up on every slide, and I don't want to speak very technical because that's not the intent of this webinar. But I would say from a market standpoint, we have one of the most robust translational service from XL7v2 into FHIR and FHIR back up to XL7v2 messages. And V2 has been around for 34 years, if my math is right, because it was first released around 1989 and it's still around and very, very, very common in the provider space. So with that said, there's a lot of different type of messages, and A39 and A40 are one of those messages that is very impactful because this talks about patient merge and patient unmerge in terms of the record. As we work with a lot of big provider networks as well as HIEs, realize this is a need. And rather than make it manual and other solutions of manual and scripting it yourself, we have an opinionated with our health informaticists on how the information should transform into FHIR and how it can transform back out as V2 messages. So this speaks to our translational service, our data processing ingestion, and how we focus on other aspect other than the CDR. We want to ensure that we create a true Interop platform. The second is about Megascale, and Megascale is kind of interesting. We released this feature on Megascale maybe a couple to few releases ago. And what Megascale essentially does is it's just achieve near unlimited storage and scalability in a single FHIR server. So what does that mean? We know for a fact that no matter we go cloud or on-prem, there is a limit. There's a limit. As healthcare data, we go petabytes, exabytes, there's tons of data, and there's no perfect reason to put everything in a single FHIR server anyway. So regardless of maybe tenancy issue, solutions, or the way you want to store certain information in one data repository and in other data repositories, you want to have that design, right, for your use case. But it can become a nightmare in terms of management from an administrator standpoint. So what we did is we did for megascales a layer of abstraction to make it a single file server. But behind the scenes, it's routing to different servers for different use cases and different purposes. So by doing so, we make life easy, and we want to create that Zen for organizations and for our customers, and especially for the system administrators. And we want to keep them working before they kind of flip the table and leave us all, because data is just becoming unmanageable. So that's our mega scale in terms of why we want a continuous building on this feature. The next one is exciting. I know I talked about analytics and reasoning. This is kind of like, think about the third one that's popping out. We call it the happy fire query language. And what this is using SQL-like syntax to query directly in our file server. It's in experimental right now, and it's very exciting because, again, we asked the assumption on why is data needs to travel out into a relational before you can start analyzing and pull information out. We understand in the market there are a lot of experts in the data science field that knows SQL. So we want to create HFQL, Happy Fire Query Language, which is a SQL-like syntax for you to query information out and do analytics. This one, I believe this is my fourth, a camel. Fun fact about camel. Camel obviously is an awesome animal. I love them. They can drink 200 liters and 53 gallons of water in 3 minutes, by the way. They're awesome. But if we kind of think about camels, camels are awesome because they're reliable. They're reliable in a sense that, they carry different types of data load, and they can travel across various terrains in different checkpoints and to get to where they need to go to. And that's why, I think that's why Apache Camel chose camel as the word as an analogy is we're breaking this framework into SMILE at its core. So when you think about, when you talk about a couple data streams, we can manage it. But things get complex. If we create the Internet of Health and a true data interoperability platform, things get very complex in terms of how the data should come in this way, that way, then get persisted, then be delivered. But it might be very different in another sense. So Camel creates another layer of what we talked about in that circle. We remember the composability aspect is to create that composability, flexibility with data processing, data persistence, and data management. Okay. We're very excited for this, and I like camels. Lastly, is a CQ engine. This goes back to the clinical reasoning aspect. We put a lot of work in terms of making this system awesome. Right now, this is we ran into our customers running our CQ engine to its max, and it hit a CPU limited kind of limitation, and we fixed it. We made it 2 times faster. And there's also a hidden bullet here. We reduced so many lines of codes to streamline in terms of just our development to make our software amazing in that sense. I'm probably reciting old type of statistics, but at a population health level, we are looking at 1 million resources as patients, 1 million patients. And if each patient had 250 resources attached to them, let's say observation, other things, we can run analytics. So that essentially is 250 million resources. We can run analytics on that in less than an hour. And I think now it's perhaps even faster. So that's why I think about, the digital quality measures, and think about those reasoning things. If the logic is in the system on the file server and you have the information, you already have it, you can run a lot of cool analytics and unlock a lot of interesting use case and build a lot of interesting applications on top. And now back to Adam to talk about some of our premium products.
Terrific. Thank you, Peter. And I had no idea that camels could drink that much that quickly. So I learned a couple of things from you there. Thank you. All right. If you wouldn't mind, let's just jump right to the next slide, please. Great. Thank you. And I'm going to be introducing the SMILE DQM solution in detail here. And I noticed that that question mark really doesn't belong in the header. I'm pretty sure that I will be introducing it. Anyways, it's you've already given it a pretty good introduction, Peter, so thank you for that. The And to be clear, DQM is digital quality measures, and that's part of our clinical reasoning suite that Peter was talking about. CMS has made it clear in their Meaningful Measure 2.0 initiative that they want to build on their commitment to FHIR and bring the benefits of FHIR to the quality measures. Meaningful Measures 2, it aims to do a number of things. First, streamline measures across federal programs. And I'm going to come back to that one in a moment. 2, transform to fully digital measures. And 3, leverage quality measures to improve patient outcomes. All of those very noble goals. I want to return to the one about streamlining the measure submission across a number of different federal programs. Peter and I, just last week, we were at the Civitas conference, and the closing keynote was given by a director of the CDC. And when she was done, one of the audience members got up and gave the most impassioned, eloquent, wasn't so much a question as it was a speech. She was imploring the CDC to align the measures that they collect from the providers and the HIEs and the various healthcare institutions, to align them with the other federal agencies. And she went on just for 5 minutes explaining how painful it is to prepare and submit all these quality reports that are similar but not identical. And anyways, long and the short of it is, I didn't appreciate until last week how painful this process is and how much duplicate effort there is. But turns out that this lady's wishes, and I think the entire industry's wishes, are being heard and addressed by CMS with MM2. Anyways, coming back to it, as far as an enforcement date goes, there isn't a specific date set yet, but we're anticipating it's going to be in about 18 months in 2025. In addition to MM2, in Meaningful Measures 2.0, there are a number of business benefits to using a modern quality measures engine for today's business needs, such as automating existing manual clinical processes, transitioning from retrospective to prospective measures, best practices around decision support, instant submissions done at scale, etc. And as Peter mentioned earlier, our clinical reasoning team, they've been working on our engine for 10 years. So what's new is we now have a front-end web application. That's what you can see on the screen here. And this makes it super simple and efficient for reporting into CMS's quality payment program, and of course, all the other various agencies and reporting channels that the providers and payers need to report into. Next slide, please, sir. Thank you. So once your data is in SMILE, the end-to-end process to submit quality reports, as Peter was talking about, it is fast. Evaluating measures for most systems today, as you know, it's heavily manual, can take days, weeks, even months to complete. But to repeat the metric Peter used earlier, with SMILE DQM, you can evaluate 1 million patients in under an hour. That's a pretty impressive number. Because we're submitting to CMS via API, we also get instant feedback from CMS on our submissions. So we'll know if it's accepted, if it's rejected, and we'll get information back if it is rejected that's going to help us manage our submissions. And if we do need to make changes, we can do that directly in the app, which makes life a lot easier. Next, please. Thanks. And again, just, to really emphasize the speed, because our team has done a phenomenal job on this. Another metric we like to tout is, for MIPS, you need to submit a measure panel of 6 measures. And so we can process 50,000 patients for an entire 6-measure set in under 5 minutes. Also, to help you maximize your reporting scores, we have our care gaps capability, and this can help prospectively surface patients who are going to fail any given measure, and that gives you the chance to take proactive action and consequently increase your quality scores. The solution is also flexible. You can run it against an entire population, or you can run it for a specific patient in real time at the point of care and close the care gap on the spot. Also, Smile has a library of production-ready quality measures. So you can recognize gained efficiencies from day one. And finally, you also have the ability to author your own measures or consume measures from any number of sources, such as the NCQA. And speaking of authoring measures, Peter, jump ahead, please. Thank you. Yeah, so speaking of authoring measures, of course, if you're an agency or you want to create or publish your own measures, we have professional services. Our knowledge authoring team is among the most experienced in the world in authoring CQL content. And as Peter mentioned earlier, CQL, clinical quality language. This is the domain-specific language of quality measures, and it's what powers all of our clinical reasoning tools. And of course, we're trusted by federal agencies, universities, the largest tech companies in the world. You can see some names on this slide. And as you can tell, particularly, Peter, I love how passionate you were speaking about clinical reasoning. As you can tell, we are really proud of this solution, and I know Peter or I or anyone else from Smile would be delighted to talk to you if you have interest. Let's jump ahead, please, into prior auth. So one moment. Oh, thank you. So changing gears, looking at a bit of a sneak peek into a product that's in the works, prior authorization. This is going to be released over the next couple of release cycles of Smile. And we're building this in conformance with CMS and Da Vinci specifications. It's going to be an end-to-end solution with a very strong focus on automation. So to dive into the capabilities a little bit in the 3 bullet points you see on the screen, the first one, provider EMRs will be able to automatically discover if a given service requires a prior authorization. Any necessary documents will be automatically exchanged between payer and provider, and the determination with supporting documentation will be made available on the spot in real time. So this is going to save a significant amount of manual effort, and of course, will recognize the associated cost benefits. And jumping ahead, speaking of cost benefits and cost savings, we're looking at about $64,000 cost savings. It costs today about $64,000 per primary care provider per year to do prior authorization. These are not our numbers. If you're in the space at all, you'll know these are the numbers thrown about within the industry. These are pretty conventional numbers, and you can see one source for it at the bottom. But the way this number is derived, and you can do the math with me on the screen, right now, there's about 40 prior authorization requests per provider per week. And as we shift from $13 to $2 for a fully automated prior authorization, that's a cost savings of $11 per each of those prior authorizations. And then you just multiply that out. So that is really impactful from a financial perspective. And that's for providers. Moving ahead for payers, thank you. Many of these cost savings can be shared with the payers, but Payers will also recognize their own burden reduction. And as an example, utilization management automation can generate real-time responses 85% of the time. And this results in a 40% reduction in costs for the payer. Go ahead, please. Thanks. Looking at the prior authorization rule for 2026, on the journey there, one of the more interesting aspects, and this is the third bullet point, is CMS has stated their intent is to enforce adjudication of urgent prior authorizations within 72 hours and non-urgent prior auths within 7 days. CMS has also been floating the idea of 48 hours and 5 days, respectively, for urgent and non-urgent prior auths. Regardless, as you can see in the third bullet, they plan to phase this to 100% real time by 2026. And so this, at least for me, this begs the question, if it's automated, why not just go straight to real time adjudication? Anyways, I'm not in CMS's head. I can't give you an answer to that, but I can say certainly with our prior authorization solution, you don't need to worry about the progressive development. You can go right to the real time. All right. Thank you, Peter. So looking at what our solution looks like, there are 3 discrete and independent services that make up the SMILE prior authorization solution. On the payer side. And these services, as I mentioned earlier, they do align to the Da Vinci and specifically Da Vinci implementation guide. So if you're familiar with Da Vinci, you'll recognize these, but I'll run through it quickly. The coverage rules discovery. This is used to determine if the given service is going to require a prior authorization. And then if it does, the documentation templates and rules. This supports dynamic pop-up forms in front of the provider to collect any missing data at the point of care. That avoids the back and forth between faxes or EDIs or telephone, and we can really speed things up and automate things. And then finally, the prior authorization support service. This is where the actual adjudication and determination is either going to be handled or performed. So to the next slide, to recap, our forthcoming prior authorization solution, it checks all the boxes for compliance, plus it provides significant efficiency and cost savings gains. And on that, I want to take this chance to thank everybody who attended. We really appreciate you spending this last hour with us.
Until next time.
Cheers.